I had to try it for myself. I had to splice a piece of coax to see what the effects were, but I did it on the bench. And follow along with me and see exactly why you're not supposed to splice coax, but you're supposed to terminate it properly and use proper connections. Stay tuned. Well, so what do we have here? We have my camera set up so you can see the close-up on the meter. And we have a loop of coax that's ready to receive a connection on it. You can see that down here. It's terminated with a dummy load. I've got my inline bidirectional watt meter ready to go. And the other end of this feed line goes to the meter's input. Comes out of the meter's output, comes out of the meter's input and comes all the way around to the back of this UHF Motorola radio that I'll just use here on the bench tonight. So let's take a look at the power input and output straight into the dummy load so you can see the effects of high SWR on a splice. Okay, so let's take a look at the setup now. I have the feed line going out of the radio to the input of the meter and to the dummy load attached to the meter, and I have my other camera recording a close-up of the meter so that we can see what the forward and reflected power is. So the first thing I'll do is I'll choose forward power and I'll key the mic, and we'll see the radio puts out about 20 watts because I'm on the 50 watt scale. And then we'll put to reflected, and there should be 0 reflected power. I'm going to turn it down to 5 just to see if we get anything. Yeah, the meter just kind of barely moves. So I wouldn't call this a perfect dummy load by any stretch, because a perfect dummy load shouldn't reflect any power. At least that's what they teach us. But I think from a practical standpoint, this is pretty good. Okay, now give me about 2 minutes here. I'll set the camera down and I'll get the splice set up. So I've got everything set up here, and here's what we're going to do. I've got the feed line output of the radio going to the input of the meter, the output of the meter coming through my really beautifully done splice. Isn't that oh so pretty? And then off the other side of the splice, it just goes through a loop of RG58, which is what I've got on both sides, and out to the dummy load. So let's take a look. What happens. I'm on 50 watts on forward on the power meter. Let's take a look at what happens when I key the microphone. So I'm going to key it up, and we've got about 20 watts forward power. Now let's flip it into reverse, and oh, I can see something, but let's just set it to 5 to see what that is. And now we're on the 5 watt scale, so we're down at the bottom, and we'll take a look. And we're reflecting back almost 2 watts. So that is, if you were to take a look at your SWR tables, that is an SWR of 2 to 1. It's reflecting almost 10% of the power. 20 watts forward, 2 watts reverse, just about 2 watts reverse. That is an SWR of 2 to 1. 10% of your power is being reflected. So that's a bad thing, right? Now let's go take a look at this setup with a time domain reflectometer, or TDR, and see why this is happening and why splicing is bad. Okay, well, let's take a look at the setup I've got here in the lab now. I have my 0 to 1 gigahertz dummy load attached through about 4 meters or about 12 feet of coax directly to my analyzer, and I'm going to drive it, the analyzer on the screen here. So this is a joy to do with your hands full. Let's take a look here, and I'm going to clear the results I've got on screen, and I'm going to hit the magic keys to do a screen recording here on my Mac, and I'm going to do a TDR scan of this setup. So now we'll wait for it to do the TDR of the analyzer through to the dummy load, and we should just see the signal go out and back and reflect off the end, which is the dummy load, and show those results on screen. And sure enough, we see that bump at the 4 meter mark, as you can see down here at the bottom. So I'll set the camera down, and I'll come back in just a minute, and we'll test this cable here with a splice in it. I'll show you that a little better in a second. Hang on. Alright, here we are. We've got the same dummy load. Now I've got my section of cable in it with the splice, as you can see right here. And that splice is about 1.5 feet from the analyzer, and that's simulating what I've got going on at that repeater site. So I'll hit clear to clear out my old results here. Once again, I'll start the screen recording on the computer so you can see what's going on up nice in detail and close. And I'll do a single TDR scan, and let's compare the differences. So it's doing the scan, it's going out, it's bouncing across, and I'm expecting it to see a bump in the wire, not even quite 1 meter in. Let's take a peek and see what we get here. And sure enough, we see a couple of bumps. So first off, I see the bump at the end of that cable about the 3 meter mark, and that's for the dummy load. But look at this bump up here, up at the beginning, and that's where the impedance mismatch is due to that splice. If I take a look now at the SWR, you can see the SWR is consistent at 2:1 all the way across. On the prior scan, it was flat at 1:1. So this is one of those reasons why, that's the proof in the pudding right there, why you don't want to do a splice just like that.
So that was interesting. So here's really what you need to know. Don't splice your coax unless you really have no other choice. Understand the impact of what it's doing if you have to do it, and get a proper repair done as quickly as possible, either with connectors or terminate your cable properly. Because as you saw with that experiment on the bench behind me, I drove an SWR 2:1, and all I did was splice the coax, just the way we used to splice DC wire. That's why you don't do it. Hope you learned something today. 73. See you again soon.